Hi, Flosstube. Pam here, stitching between the lines. Today is Sunday, April 8th, and it's early afternoon. Um, I have so many things, so many things to talk about. Um, it'll probably take me days to get this uploaded. We'll see. We'll see. It is sunny out right now. Well, it's bright. There's a little bit of a blue sky, and in like 30 seconds, it'll be snowing a whiteout, snowing sideways. It's something. My husband is on a business trip. He left this morning, except his plane couldn't leave until a little bit ago because of the wind and snow. April 8th. We'll get snow up until May. I've said that before. Last year or the year before, we had snow the weekend after Mother's Day. So anyway, it's just, we're done with it already. Enough already. Today I went to church and then it snowed a whole bunch when we were in church. So you have to come out and like brush off your car. Then I went to Walmart to get some things. And driving home, it was like white out, blue sky, white out, blue sky. It's insane. So anyway, came home, did some things, did the weekly ironing. I know, so old school. I know. I've always ironed. My husband wears a button-down shirt and khaki pants kind of thing every day. So I iron, even though they say on the packaging wrinkle-free. That's just a joke. So anyway, I did all the things. I'm going to do this video and then I'm going to spend time messing around trying to upload it and inserting pictures. And then I will have like a whole week with my husband's gone. Although he missed his first flight already after the one that finally left from here. He's just starting in the northeast of the United States, going to Vancouver. Then he's going to Las Vegas. Then he's going to Florida. Then he's coming home. So way more travel than I'd like all in 1 week. But anyway, it means I have lots and lots of time to do the things. So anyway, enough about that because there's so many other things. So let me just show you where we've been. I showed you last week, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, last week. Well, let's go with last week. That I had finished a Farmhouse Christmas, the second one, but I hadn't finished the quilt block that I'm doing, that Lynette from Homesteading on the Homefront, she made some complimentary quilt blocks. And I'm doing one along with each, and then they will be ornaments all together. So there's that one. Where are we going? I liked how that one came out. That was pretty. So I did that second one, and then I've started the third one. I've not ever caught up on this. I'm hoping to catch up after this one. Oh, you can see that pretty well. I started with the tree, and I'm not doing the borders. I've said that before. I don't want the borders to interfere with whatever I do for finishing to make it an ornament. And I always try to get the most cumbersome part out of the way first. I did start with the tree. I'm not starting in the middle because I'm working up in the corner of the fabric, so I'm just trying to start in and down far enough. So the house is usually what I would do. I'd do the biggest, most cumbersome part of the pattern first. So and now that the tree's done, I've moved to the house. And on my desk right now, which is a big old farmhouse table, is my desk, sitting in front of a long expanse of windows. I have a cat. The cat just came, and I have stuff all over the place, so hopefully he won't cause an accident. It's possible. So if there's crashing and banging, it's because there's a cat up here looking out the window and then thinking he's going to come over and see me. So anyway, okay, my big whip, in my big working space. This is hard. This is a cumbersome piece for me because I have it on my lap frame thing. Anyway, Lila Studios Let Freedom Ring. This is only the third time I think I've had it out to work on, so I'm not really complaining that I'm only as far as I am. I need to reach over, and it's a big and cumbersome, so hopefully I won't whack any of you. Oh, something stuck to it. Get that off there. So there is, I'm going to stand up so we can see together. So I outline as I go for each section that I do. And last time where I quit was I had only done the roof of the breezeway. So I have done in just the last, since I started working on it again on April 1st or maybe the evening of April 2nd, and I only work on it in the evening, basically. I've done the whole breezeway, brick pillars, and most of the trees and the roof of the extension. So I will finish all these things and I will move on to another motif. The beginning, actually, really, the first motif for me that's over here in what would be the upper right hand corner. I'm very excited to move on to something other than bricks and trees. There it is on a piece of Picture This Plus 36 count mellow. I need to start writing that down because, as you will see as time moves on, and I have taken the little pieces of paper off of patterns or off of little pieces of fabric once I'm done showing it as a whip. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I don't know what it is, and so that's sort of my bad. It's my bad. Sorry. And then as I'm moving through, I have some FFOs and I have another whip and another finished thing that's not FFO'd. So they're not going to be in order because they're in a basket all together. So I've been showing this. This was the free pattern that we got when we went to the Midwest Cross Stitching Retreat. And I showed it as a whip and showed it when it was done. Showed the box that we got with it. Let me see what's going on here. I think my lid just isn't on straight. I covered it. I did what we were given the supplies to do. I made the change in the pattern as I didn't do the bats. I just did the full moon. I don't like bats. I didn't want to stitch bats. I try not to stitch bats if I can. The cording on the box. The box has a bit of, we covered a little bit of batting on the bottom. And there's black cording around it. It really is a cute box. What I'm starting to feel like is that my fall, all those little fall finishes I had are going to weigh on me, that they're just not fully finished. And I'm starting in on finishing other smalls. So if I don't start finishing FFOing things, I'm going to be like overwhelmed. So I also FFO'd Ebenezer's Christmas. Erica Michaels was a stitch along we did with Buckeye Stitcher and Marlene Stitching by the Lake. And I finished it and I FFO'd it. I found this in my stash of things. You know, it's a little dowel. And I just sampled out some different fabrics and finished it in a little hanging piece. I really think it came out well. I'm very, very happy with how this came out, because I just sort of was winging it, like thinking, this might look good. Let me try this. So I did it, and there it is. And then I had a little moment of feeling like I absolutely had to do something, just start something, do something new. So I dug out of my bin of kitted up projects, and really this is unfairly considered a kitted up project because it came in a kit. But it was in the basket with all the things that I've kitted up. It's a JBW Designs, A Very Merry Spring. And it came with, let me just look. Came with the fabric for the backing and the ribbon for the hanger, which happens to be pink, the fabric. The threads that I'll let you stare at it for a second while I look at the directions before I say what I want to say. Oh, dried sage was the color. This doesn't look like dried sage. I think there was some thread in there with it. I don't know. Here's where I've lost all control of what I'm doing. I think that, you know what it is? It's spring grass, and that's probably a week's spring grass. It was a nice light spring color. Something is off somewhere in there. Can you see what it says? A Very Merry Spring. I did something wrong. Something in the spacing is off, but I'm pretty sure you wing it. I could not find where I went wrong in misspacing the letters. I'm not sure I'll finish it like they show. In my mind, I wanted to finish it like in an Easter egg oval shape, but then I went ahead and stitched the little bunnies that were there, which I think might preclude it from being an Easter egg shape. I could pick them out, so I don't know. There's options. So I started that because I had the urge and couldn't stand to not start something new. And then I started another thing yesterday. My Quilt Guild has sewing days about once a month in the space where we hold our meetings. We can reserve the room on a Saturday, and whoever wants to comes and brings their sewing machine or handwork or whatever. And we sew all day. So as if I hadn't sewn enough yesterday the minute I came home, and I mean the minute I came home, I went and pulled this pattern out and found some fabric and started working on it. I was gifted with this pattern, and the pattern is the only picture I have, so I have to show you this side of it. This is from, it's a series called Greetings from America, and it's from Open Road Abode Needleworks, which is a relatively new designer from Ohio. So right there, I was thrilled because that's where I'm from. I don't live there now and haven't lived there in a lot of years, but that's where home was when you went home to Grandma and Grandpa's, or even my parents retired there. So there are these postcard patterns, and the pattern's on the front. There's what it looks like. And there's a whole series of them. And I, of course, just fell in love. Of course, this was gifted to me, so I had not ever seen it anywhere. But this is what I managed to do in about an hour yesterday afternoon, and then a few more hours after supper. I got this much done. And really, if I wasn't too tired, I could have finished the trailer with the silhouette of the American flag on it. So I thought this was the coolest thing, and it was so cute and so clever. Well, first, let me back up the train a minute and talk about how they use these patterns. They tell you will fit in a 4x6 frame if you stitch them on either 14 count Aida or 28 count linen or even weave. I wanted it on white, so the only white I could find was a 28 count even weave. Possibly that MCG whatever from Joann's that we all hate. I like the feel of it though. It just has such a nice feel. So anyway, there it is. And I was out doing my Walmart trip this morning after church, because church is over near where the Walmart is. I saw this frame. Isn't this the coolest frame? I just thought, I'm assuming it's really truly going to fit in a 4x6, that this would look so cute in this frame. That's sort of naturey, beach. It's kind of beachy, but I don't know. We'll try it. We'll see how it works out. So I did that. Oh, I'm using thread. The thread I'm using is my all-time favorite color, which it was a crescent color because it's from that long ago, wavy navy. So that's what I'm using to stitch my little Greetings from America. So I wanted to find some more of this particular version of these postcard patterns. And I looked and looked and looked and looked online, and every now and then I'd find a shop that's actually carrying it, because it doesn't appear to be in a lot of shops yet. And then they wouldn't have this one. They'd have some of the other postcard ones. But I really wanted this one. I wanted to send a few people this one. But I can't seem to make that happen. So what I did find, and am going to do, is I found a package that includes 4 of the patterns by, the designer, I want to say it right, Open Road Abode Needleworks. And so a lot of them are campers and national parks. And here's the 4 that are in there. So it has the one I want, and it has the little Shasta camper, another camper, and then a cabin and a bear. That's just so, they're just so simplistic and neat, and you know, a new designer from Ohio. So what's going to happen with these patterns that I bought is I am racking them to some people of my choosing. Sorry. But I do want you just to learn about a new designer if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, see anything by her yet. And I found them at the Silver Needle. So the Silver Needle had a couple different 4-packs patterns like this. And I believe a couple of the postcard ones, but not the ones I wanted. So I thought that was cute. I think they're cool. So by the time you're seeing this, these racks will probably be in the mail already. There is one, I'm having a little packaging issue with one of them for reasons I'm not going to explain. But I need to go tomorrow to do my one Monday community service thing. And so I will be near where there's a post office that I can go to and get all these out in the mail. So by the time, because I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be uploaded by tomorrow, noontime or whenever I'm done. So these are on the way to four lucky viewers. And yes, all viewers, yes. So that's it for stitching. So if you don't mind for half a second, I'm going to just move some things off my workspace. Oops. Oh, caught my needle in that one. I know. Wow, I really accumulate a lot of things. And one thing I didn't show you because it was buried under all the other goodies was my color and cotton fabric of the month. Isn't that beautiful? It's very lemon yellow. It's reflecting terribly. Ooh, perfect. Pretty much perfect. I feel like what you see is a little bit lighter than it is in real life, but I know what pattern I'm going to go look for to put on this. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to move all that because it's precarious sitting here. And I have a couple other things to talk about. First, if everybody, I'm sure everybody, I know everybody watches Nicole Buckeye Stitcher, and she talked about her friend, was it a friend, Nicole, a friend who has an Etsy store where she sells soy candles, right? Did I say that right? Yep, they're soy candles. And they have very cool, like, bookish themes to them. So hopefully my daughter, I don't think she watches me. She gets to see me enough. I don't think she is, but she has a tart warmer melter, you know, and you melt the things. So I got her a few of these for her birthday. Bookstore and wizardy buttery drink. Yum. Ooh. Bookseller was another one. Not as wonderful smelling as the butterscotch. And Headmaster's Office. Aren't those fun? Can't smell that one quite as much either. And then, because I really like to burn a candle, I bought a couple of the candles. And if you go to her Etsy shop, and she is Frosted Beard Studio. Frosted Beard Studio. There's a description of what the scents smell like. Well, I guess there is on the label too, but I got Scents and Sensibility, which says it's meadow breeze and wildflowers. And I wish you could smell this, honestly. It smells like lilacs to me. Spring. It smells like spring. And then Rainy Day Reads was the other one I chose. I tried to get something different than what I had already just bought for my daughter. I don't even know what to tell you that smells like. What is the description? Fresh rain, ginger, and lavender. I don't know. Somehow it reminds me of a pine smell. Christmassy or something. So it came packaged lovely in this box. Nicely. I mean, the candles would lay down into their spots. Everything fit in nice. I'm returning them not as neat and tidy. So, okay. So that's enough of that stuff. Now, last time, my last video where I filmed from our bedroom so I could show you the picture frame shelf, which was fun. That was fun. I appreciate everybody's kind comments. I swung the camera around so you could see the cats because it was a yucky day, and I was talking about they had the right idea and they were all curled up on the bed. And I talked about a quilt or two that you could see in that picture, like the king size quilt that's on the foot of the bed is the king size version of the quilt that's hanging right there. And I never once, and I saw this when I rewatched it, and somebody pointed it out to me that I never even mentioned the quilt that was hanging on our armoire door. So I'll put a picture here. Because now I know how to do that, of that quilt. The quilt has a little bit of a funny story. There's a magazine that comes out, I think, 4 times a year, and it's called Quilt Sampler. And it features 10 quilt stores from around the United States. And it talks about them, where they are, and whatever kind of information there is about the store that the store would like to share. And they also include a pattern for a quilt of some sort from the store. I don't know. And in one of the stores, it's been long enough, I just don't remember all the details. In one of the pictures of one of the quilt stores, that quilt was hanging on the wall. And I just loved that thing. I saved the magazine, opened to that page, and I kept looking at it. And finally, I contacted the store and asked about the quilt. And they told me they had 1 kit left. And so I ordered it that way, and I made it. And it's one of those quilts with like 10 million pieces, and it's scrappy. I was at a Quilt Guild meeting recently, and there's a designer that some of my friends and I follow, and her style is very scrappy. And people in my Quilt Guild, so these are like people who quilt or, didn't really know that word per se. That scrappy, when we say that, like scrappy, doesn't necessarily mean you've used only scraps to make your quilt. Scrappy means you have put together a lot of different reds to be the red color in your quilt, and so on. So blues and greens and things like that. So scrappy is that you've put together a lot of reds that are in the same color tone to be the red in your quilt, or the whites or the neutrals or the reds or the blues, whatever. I do a lot of very scrappy quilting. So somebody said when we were showing the scrappy quilts, a whole bunch of us had made all the same quilt, and we were showing our different and calling them scrappy. And somebody said, "Did you really make that whole thing from scraps?" I'm like, no, that's not what that means. That means, so anyway, this quilt was very scrappy. So I will show you the picture of it, or just did, of it on the bed. That's the summer quilt that goes on the bed. Which kind of, it folds across the foot of the bed. It's not like it's cold enough for a quilt, but, so anyway, so the other thing that, I'm sure many of you are seeing is lots of Flosstubers kind of crossing over into the quilting world, which is wonderful. I was a cross stitcher and a quilting wannabe, and I started quilting at least 15 years ago. Like, my youngest had gone to kindergarten, and she's graduating college in a few weeks, so I got my first nice sewing machine, like when she was 4, from a quilt store in the town I live near. And along with purchasing a machine like that, you got a year of classes for free. So I got it for Christmas when she was 4. So when she was in kindergarten that fall, I thought I better take a class because my year is up. And I took 1 class, and it was how to cut with ruler and rotary cutter. And we made a quilt block, a star block. And I was just like sold. I was sold. That was it. And so I am mostly a self-taught quilter. If you know how to cut, and you know how to make a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and you know how to press your seams the way they're supposed to go for the best fitting assembly of your quilt. And you can do it. You can pretty much do anything. And nowadays you can watch about anything on YouTube. So whenever I show a quilt or whatever, I get much love, which I appreciate. I really do. I don't want quilting to be I don't want to take this over with quilting, but people have said over and over and over again in the comments, please show, please show, please show. So there'll be quilts. Quilts will sneak their way in. Like, let me see, move my chair, move my thing. I have a couple of these, you have to figure out where your finger's going. These ladders. There. Currently, there's just 3 quilts on there, and they actually all have the same shade of green in them. I have to find something small to put up on the top. So every now and then, you know, a quilt is going to sneak into the picture one way or another. And I've seen everybody understand. I know. Not everybody, it's just a figure of speech. Making rag quilts and quilts with jelly rolls, which are very, very, absolutely. I have some fabulous quilts made with jelly rolls. So I'm not saying anything about that, but I know the desire to find a quilt pattern to make something that's, I don't want to say simple, but it's just a good, easy quilt. Can be easy no matter what your skill level. A nice easy quilt that really catches your eye and really looks fabulous. So I decided to pull out what I call my go-to pattern. I think most of us have something in that cross-stitch field. Like, we have a designer we go to when we need something for a particular purpose, holiday, whatever, we, go to it. So this is my go-to quilt pattern. It's called Just Can't Cut It, and it is by All Washed Up. I'm going to show it here for a minute in case anybody really wants the information. I googled it. I googled Just Can't Cut It by All Washed Up. And the pattern is still out there. It's still available. The first place I saw that has it was the Missouri Star Quilt Company, which is an excellent source of all kinds of information. They have tons of demos, and their website is just, it's fabulous. So the whole premise behind the Just Can't Cut It is that you have a focus fabric, and you really want that to be featured in your quilt somewhere. So you find a focus fabric, and then you find 5 other fabrics. Let me see, I'm going to pick this square. That, complement your focus fabric. Right? And so here's another really cool thing about this pattern in this particular design. I've written all over this. So is that all the sizes are represented, which is not always the case. So you can make a lap or a bunk quilt, a baby quilt, a child size, twin size, full size, queen size, king size, and they tell you all the quantities of fabric. So your main fabrics 1 and 2, fabric 3, fabric 4 and 5. And when you look in this pattern, you'd be able to see where they're telling you fabric 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 go. So when you're doing this, you can decide, what is fabric 1? Is it one of the ones that needs, 2 of them you use more of than the other 3. So when you're picking out your fabric, you may be needed to consider, well, just a little tiny bit of something in particular would look nice, not a big, huge piece. So anyway, so there's that. And then they say, in here they give you a spot to cut out a little swatch of your fabric and tape it, so you're not going to forget what is fabric 1, 2, or 3. And you can see I've made notes. I've made this quilt a number of times. So when I'm at the store, maybe I will have being noted what I'm going to do. So I have made this is my go-to pattern, and I'm going to do it pictures and pictures and pictures of ones I've made, which I will put there. I have my all-time favorite right here, which I actually don't have a picture of. Let's see. The fabric that I bought was It's a batik, and a batik is a fabric that is, the pattern is made using waxing and dyeing. It can be a stiffer fabric. The colors are often very, very vivid and just beautiful colors. But batiks are a little bit harder to work with if you are new to quilting. They don't have any stretch. So if you are trying to make things match, like make one block seam match from top to bottom, you can't stretch anything. And usually a cotton quilt fabric will have a little bit of give, so you can do a little stretching. Batiks are very not forgiving, but they're very crisp and easy to cut and hold their shape, and the bias isn't a problem. So anyway, this was the fabric. This was my focus fabric. I was at a quilt retreat where the quilt store at the end of the retreat, I went to this one for probably 10 years. The last day she would bring all the clearance and on sale and fabric from the shop that she was ready to get rid of, and she would sell it for $4 or $5 a yard. And I had yards and yards and yards of this, because as you see, it's even on the back. So I made this quilt for my daughter, who played saxophone for years and years and years, and just really was excelled at it. So the music notes, and then these are my 5 fabrics that go with it. So I'm going to do a little bit of a stand back so you can see, maybe get a better effect. So the way these quilts go together is, the first thing is, of your focus fabric, these blocks are 12.5-inch square. So it's a nice big block. So you really, because you want it to be seen. You want whatever's in that block to be seen. And then you make 2 what is called strip sets, and that's where you cut fabric a width these are 6.5 inches, I think, 6.5-inch strips. So you cut them the whole width of the fabric, and then you sew them together, and now they're 12.5 inches by 6.5. So you have a big long strip of these 2 fabrics sewn together. That's a strip set. And then you start cutting that strip set into widths that they tell you, 6.5 inches in this case. So you cut lots of 6.5-inch pairs here. And then these 3 fabrics are thin, a thinner strip with the fabric sewn together into a strip set, and then cross cut again into 6.5 inch. You sew these 2 units together, and now you have a 12.5-inch block and a 12.5-inch block. And in the pattern, it shows you how to, you just twist each pieced block a little bit so that it just gets a different effect. And it really is cute. Not uncommon on the back of my quilt. Somewhere in this I did something wrong, and one of my strip sets was the wrong size. So I had blocks that weren't right. So I used it when I made the backing, which hopefully you can see that. It just, it didn't go to waste. It made its way in there, even though they were the wrong size. So anyway, there's that. In one of the pictures I showed, I made a baby quilt. It's the one with rubber duckies. And that I made, I didn't use the baby quilt measurements on here. I cut the size in half. So each of these blocks actually is 6.5 inches instead of 12.5 inches. And then in the quilt it's 6 inches. So it's adorable. So it took as many blocks to make, whatever, it might be this many, to make a baby quilt, but each individual block is smaller. Cutting the size of a quilt block in half is not something you just do all willy-nilly. You need to think about it, because you don't cut the seam allowance in half. So don't do it without Googling how to do it or asking me or whatever. Don't do it. You'll end up with no seam allowance and nothing will fit together. All these pieces won't fit together. So anyway, that is my suggestion for a potential quilt top. If you're just starting out, or even if you've been quilting forever and ever, and you just need a quickie for one of the, for a child, a gift. A bunch of the, most everyone I show, that I will show when I've shown the pictures, was a gift. I have one of these quilt. This is, my daughter has this one. One of them is in Florida, and that's it. There's one I think there's not a picture of that I can think of that's in a box somewhere, like put away if I need a gift quilt. Sometimes that happens. Anyway, so there. That wasn't so long. I really thought this would go on forever, so it makes me think I've forgotten something. I'm looking around. I didn't forget anything. So anyway, Sunday afternoon. It is now all gray out. It has snowed since I started talking to you. Mother Nature's not we're not enjoying Mother Nature. I guess if the choice was rain or snow when it's this kind of cold out, I mean hovering in the 30s somewhere, I guess I'd rather have snow. But I don't know. I think we're just itching for spring. It's been a gray winter, long and gray. I don't know. Anyway, I'll quit griping because really, if I lived where there were no seasons, I'd be sad. So anyway, Sunday afternoon, I'm going to spend a while now that I've sort of figured out how to put pictures in. If I can't figure these out, then this is all for naught. I'll get it uploaded the best I can. And you'll get to see it at some point this week where I'm enjoying a lot of solitude with me, my kitties, my stitching, and Netflix maybe. Yeah, that'll be good. It's all good. So anyway, have fun. Have a good Sunday. Well, by now you're into the week somewhere. We'll see ya. Bye.